Welcome to King's March!
Hello and welcome back everyone. After it feels like an eternity, Path of Exile 3.25 Settlers of Calgar is only days away, bringing forth a new endgame expansion, new ascendancies, reworked base game mechanics, and massive buffs to underused skills. These changes require a powerful league starter to get ahead of the fresh new economic restart. Today I'm gonna offer the best of what I have along with some impressive ones from other creators as well. Once the program is fully updated, I'll be updating the POBs from my previous videos to reflect the changes in the upcoming patch. So make sure to check the notes section for important information along with the description and the pinned comments. I'll also watch out for any further changes if I've missed out on any. Consider subbing and throwing a like. So without further ado, wait! Let me first talk about the builds I feel will dominate PoE 3.25 meta. If we get these mods on tinctures, we might witness another one divine meme of a one-shotting Uber build in 3.25, quite reminiscent of the Affliction League thanks to PoE Noob. Watch out for Engineering Eternity's Volcanic Fissure of Snaking Juggernaut, which uses Arn's Anguish and Ralakesh Impatience with Eventuality Rod from Highest. It's a powerful build from the Affliction League which scales with crits and charges. If you've ever heard of the One Quack Man, Doriani's Touch used to be the touch of exile and never-ending nightmare for most bosses in PoE. The skill has received over 1000% effectiveness of added damage, all the way from 600. Perfect agony melee builds like Glacial Hammer of Shattering is quite huge. The cold damage from the skill can completely be converted into fire with 1 gem and 1 passive keystone. The buffed Perfect Agony basically doubles the effect, combining the new Glacial Hammer of Shattering with Marilyn's Fallacy and the Wings of Fate. You might be fire dot capped on a budget league start setup. There are several other builds on the horizon which uses Marilyn's Fallacy and the Perfect Agony. My favorite one, however, is the return of Essoros Lacerate Bleed Gladiator. As a channel that's inspired by him, I'm not gonna let this one slip. The new Ascendancy notable Jagged Technique allows melee builds to inflict massive amounts of bleed without weapon swapping to Ensnaring Arrow. Get ready for massive copium if you haven't yet already. Now let's talk about the builds in my channel which are viable league starters for 3.25. I'll be updating the POB to reflect the changes to passive tree and skills. The Lightning Conduit Elementalist is shockingly one of the most underrated skills due to the misconception of its 2-button playstyle. Lightning Conduit is far more convenient and powerful than most league starters that have a 2-button playstyle. You shock the enemy and then strike him with a massive burst of lightning. Secondary auto-targeting skills such as Stormbrand or Orb of Storms can be placed one at a time to spam our main skill. With each 5% shock on the target, you deal 24% more damage multiplier. In my version of the build, you get a massive chunk of damage for League Starter along with several sources of defenses. The more the shock effect you can inflict, the more DPS you get. The downside is its inconsistency with the pinnacle bosses. Shock effect depends entirely on this formula, where D is your lightning damage, T is the target's ailment threshold, and M being your total increase to the effect of shock from modifiers like passive tree, items, and gems. This is how important it is to scale these external ailment modifiers in order to maintain a consistent shock effect, especially with pinnacle bosses. This is basically a quarter of your damage multiplied by all the increases to shock effect. It is applied into Orb of Storms or the Stormbrand, whichever you're using to apply the ailment. One thing I'd like to add to the POB is this one unique jewel remade from 3.24. It's now a specific drop from King of the Mist and can have different variations similar to the Parandus pack. If it has a variant with lightning damage, you should consider it as a very strong upgrade. There are over 20 passive points around this radius, and with each getting 6% increased lightning damage, that's more than 110% increase in total, which is like a 17% more damage multiplier. An interesting thing to note is that most of the expensive rare jewels with triple crit multi stacks like a 7 to 9% more damage. This one unique item in this one location with so many passive points is something that you should keep in mind as you progress your build. Right now, POB does not show the damage value from the item because it's something I literally had to add using the custom creation tool. And a lot of people find anxiety in leveling the build with lightning tendrils. Most spell skills did get a nerf at lower gem levels, but you have to trust me on this one. at least for the sake of the many who actually tried it and had a blast with it. If you're using the exact same setup following my guide, you should find it way better than any other options out there, including Spark. The best defense in softcore is always damage, and it's even possible to take this all the way to pinnacle bosses with certain uniques. The choice is up to you. It's a mid-tier build which is basically all content viable, except for speed farming stuff like Legion and Breaches. Regular Fire Trap Elementalist might have lost its beauty after the nerfs to Righteous Fire. Sorry Pox, but in my version of the build, you gain an extra layer of defense in the form of life regen, spell suppression and evasion to compensate for the loss of that extra clear speed. The upside of the build is its easy damage scaling by reducing enemy fire resistance, straight up boosting gem levels, stacking fire dot multi. This can even be used with stuff like Diala's Malefaction. It's great for bossing and for farming stuff like essences. The downside is its lack of clearing speed. Although your fire traps can ignite proliferate an entire pack of monsters, your trap throwing speed is not as fast compared to crit-based trap builds. The build is extremely easy to level and the POB contains all the steps for each stages as you progress. A +1 to fire spells on both your weapon slots would make leveling even more faster. Although there is no mandatory uniques for this one, I would highly recommend Pyre and Eye of Malice along with the gloves with ignite proliferation and fire exposure on hit. Everything else is just flexible. Although the Lake Starter version looks paper thin in terms of Necropolis standards, the endgame version using Fire Trap of Blasting is far more than viable for T17 maps. Except for Defiance of Destiny and the 4th Valve, everything else scales the same way as mentioned in the guide for the League Starter. The Transfigure gem focuses on ignites from the hit, hence it doesn't scale from spell damage as it's an ailment damage type. The regular Fire Trap on the other hand includes 3 sources of fire damage including Burning Ground. Also the damage over time multiplier from the regular gem scales with spell damage, which is great for League Starters. We lost Divine Blessing which enables Malevolence. It's a loss of 20% more damage, so the showcase here is presented without it. Grace will perform better with higher evasion in rare body armor, but Determination will have to be swapped with Arctic armor. This build is well suited for essences and harvest farming. Expedition and Blight can also be scaled in higher difficulties once you have at least a 4 million DPS, but it's not the kind of build you would choose for farming stuff with fast bow characters. Speaking of bow characters, my Toxic Rain Pathfinder is the fastest runner build in the list. It is said to have beaten Bold in an Olympic PvP heist run. Jokes aside, it's fairly tankier than most League Starter bow builds, as it's a Pathfinder with a bunch of flasks that can be selected based off of your preferences. It's another underrated build probably because of the playstyle, but if you're looking to get some serious heisting or labbing, I mean gem farming, this is a build you can seriously consider. It's easy to level, quick to progress, the items are craftable and quite cheap for a League start. The ceiling to upgrade it is also very thin as it requires not much expensive gearing like most of the others. This is just a perfect build for gem farming, heisting, especially for hit and run mechanics like the Cavalry Archers in Age 2. There's no limitations in the content you can run, but damage wise it's not ideal choice for major bossing. Well, nobody cares about this, so let's talk about everybody's favorite. The Explosive Arrow Elementalist is one of the smoothest League starters for softcore players who want to deal massive amounts of damage with very little investment. It's also perfect for those who run PoE in potato computers, as the Ballista playstyle requires no timing nor any aiming at all. You get to run and dodge enemy attacks as long as your ballistas are up. The downside, however, is its delayed attacks while mapping. A fine line between attack speed and skill effect duration will help you to stack all the 21 fuses in the boss fights. The build is very solo cellphone friendly as it requires no uniques of tier 1 rarity. However, the build is a bit complex to understand and risky to execute without following a proper guide, as there are several things you could go wrong in your way. So make sure to check out the links to the guides in the description below. Although the build can run T17s, I have a much better version yet to be tested for farming T17s on a satisfactory budget using items such as these. If you are interested in another build guide, let me know down in the comments below. Explosive Arrow Champion might not be a viable option any longer due to the ascendancy nerfs to its overall defenses. That was the only reason why hardcore players picked up the champion. Whether it's for EA, Toxic Rain, or anything in PoE which was irrelevant to the ascendancy in damage wise. Long live the champion! Explosive Arrow is an all-rounder perfect for any content in Path of Exile. It is one of the few builds that have limitations in terms of content it can farm. I'd say delving is a bit low with EA, but the stacking of fuses combined with Ignite proliferation is just perfect for anything in PoE. One nerf the EA received was the removal of the Panopticon along with the strongest totem wheel in the passive tree. Changes will be made in the PoE once the program is updated. The spiciest one in the list is Soros Auros Flicker Strike Slayer. Ideally, we won't have a rare sword with lots of elemental DPS, but Auros Sacrifice is still the best budget-friendly option until you can start dealing with pinnacle bosses. The build can be scaled even further with the help of corrupted uniques. At the highest level of the spectrum, this can be transitioned into my Voidforge version, which is one of the most sensationally shared builds on Discord and Reddit. Just kidding, it's not the most shared build. Ideally, the replica version of Farrell's Fur is the best choice for body armor. Interestingly enough, early in 3.24, this item was weirdly cheaper than the regular Farrell's Fur, probably an economic reset of a large number of players who copied their builds exactly from a POB without understanding it nor watching the guide. But you, as my dear viewer, are smarter than most to watch the guides without skipping a second of the important pieces. But unlike most builds, this one however has to be leveled using an OP early leveling skill such as Splitting Steel. It's still a great skill as long as you're using two-handed swords or axes with lots of DPS. So until you get Auros Sacrifice or two-handed sword with massive elemental damage, I wouldn't recommend switching to Flicker Strike. This is not my best option for League Starter, but it's a sensational one to try for a lot of players. It's another perfect build for anything in PoE with massive clear speed and single target. Take it into anything except Delve Mines, unless you can prevent flicking into the deep dark. If you are gonna farm bosses and essences, you sure will have to use Replica endgame version to avoid getting one-tapped. Flicker Strike has received a significant buff in effective damage output in 3.25. Defensively, we could also squeeze in Sand Stands of Flesh and Stone to substitute the nerf to Grace. Flicker Strike builds are also getting some corrections after the changes to Rage, Berserk, and Enduring Cry. Previously, a massive burst of 1976 life regen in 1 second was enough to ramp up the Rage in combination with Calm Spirit Gloves. Now with the loss of this sudden burst of Rage regeneration, we should look for the new notables in the passive tree for consistent Rage regeneration. The new setup should be more consistent for all melee builds in general. At least, that's what they said. Although we lost a massive buff of movement speed, attack speed, and less damage taken from Berserk, a 59% effect of Rage would grant us much more damage in papers. Auto Exertion, previously known as Call to Arms, no longer grants us the buffs from the Warcries and also has a reservation to it. So overall, I'll be updating PoB once we have the new passive tree ready for this. Now let's talk about the most overpowered builds from other creators that I greatly enjoyed in 3.24. Hopefully a League Starter version will also be created for these certified ones as well. My personal 3.24 League Starter was a mistaken choice as I was testing the new Poisonous concoction of Bouncing. Although I was able to buy the Transfigured gem for 1 chaos in day 1, the skill was extremely bouncy without consistent damage and absolutely not fun to play at all. So, as I was evaluating my life's choices soon after finishing off Kitawa in Act 10, I thought of trying out something else. And this is where I met Pravi or PR3V's Bama Necromancer. And thankfully enough, the Transfigured gems without quality were listed at 3C in day 3. And surprisingly, the skill was extremely powerful and probably one of the fastest leveling skills I've ever played. I was able to use the Blink Arrow of Bombarding Clones and the Blink Arrow of Prismatic Variation as soon as I got the dexterity requirement. Any bow with lots of flat damage would be perfect for this on a budget. Even though I lacked the most important cooldown mastery, there was no trouble in leveling due to the high damage scaling from the minion damage nodes. My PoB is quite similar for most part, except that I went without the Adorn setup, hence losing a lot of damage in the process. But it was more than enough for me to unlock all 4 Void Stones and take down T17 bosses without no level of experience in engaging them. Bama Necromancer is another perfect bossing build for any content. Depending on its effective HP, you can take it all the way to T17 and Wave 15. The only downside of this hybrid minion bow build is its movement speed, and the clearing is not as great as what you get with regular bow skills. It's an extremely broken skill for a Necromancer, but has it finally been nerfed? The Bombarding Clones have managed to escape the inevitable for now, but the Prismatic Clones can now only deal damage of the selected element similar to Elemental Hit, so even the Chaos damage conversion won't even work for the skill. Also, the Necromancer's Mindless Aggression did receive a slight nerf. If there is any significant nerf, feel free to leave it down in the comments below. The elemental hit of the Spectrum Deadeye was one of the last builds I tried at the end of the Necropolis League, inspired by Havoc speedruns and Waypoint clicks. His fastest leveling guide gave me the adrenaline rush to try it out myself, and turns out it's pretty legit and super fun as long as you follow the guide line by line. Now, I did use the exact same setup as he did on his video, so given the price of these items on a League Start, I cannot refer this for new players unless he has a dedicated guide to League Start this without the mandatory items. Elemental Hit of the Spectrum in comparison to Lightning Arrow is a much better upgrade, and you don't even depend on ballistas for single target. The clear speed is extremely smooth, and even the boss damage is good enough for leveling bow build. Most importantly, it is extremely fun to play, and you could use Lightning Arrow until you switch to the Transfigured Gem. The AoE explosions are quite similar to the AoE lightnings from LA. Extremely fast, easy to level, decently tanky, but requires some good items to make it to work. I'll make sure to update the link in the description if I can find a detailed League Starter guide for this one. It is definitely League Start viable, perfect for Legion, Delirium, Breaches, and literally anything except for super tanky stuff. The T17 version, which obviously cost a couple of mirrors, can obviously kick T17 bosses in seconds. But T17 maps in general are now nerfed as well. At least, that's what they said. Elemental Hit of the Spectrum received a decimal level of buff in damage numbers and a decimal level of reduction in mana cost. Apart from this, there is nothing else, hopefully. So, before I continue, I would like to pronounce my condolences to the most broken build from 3.24 before it goes down into the grave along with the Necropolis League. And that is the most sensational build of 3.24, which was none other than the Cast on Crit 1-button Detonate Dead. Don't get me wrong, Rutu's Cog looks promising enough for potential League Starter. Some said it's hot and spicy. This was one of the top played builds by those who farmed T17 maps and Wave 30 simulacrums in 3.24. Even the League Starter version was completely broken to farm Ubers. The best part about this build was the fact that you don't have to press 2 buttons all the time. It was fast with a great clear speed while still retaining its massive single target damage. Cog DD was simply perfect for any content. And I mean literally anything in Path of Exile. It didn't have any downsides nor any limitations to the type of content it could take. At least, that's what she said. Although DD was not directly nerfed, the 2 lines from the patch has completely gutted the damage effectiveness of Detonate Dead entirely, as the Spectres played a huge role in this matter. You can still play it for League starting, leveling, and getting into red maps, but it will no longer shine at endgame like it used to. Next up in the list is another cat build, except this one throws shield and mostly in SSF.
Greetings, Exiles.
The best part about this one is the massive buff coming to quality items, especially Emperor's Vigilance and other hybrid evasion energy shields. If the numbers are true from the Dreamcore video, this would make shield builds even more stronger in combination with Seething Fury and the Retaliation gems. Emperor's Vigilance is the aspiring mid-level upgrade, but can even be better with rare hybrid evasion energy shields as well.
Why do I use Corrupting Fever? But it's very simple. We are the champion and we have this skill node.
In combination with Perseverance, Heat Shiver, and Hirmsorrow, the build can even be taken to T16 maps quite spectacularly. I've tried this combination in the past and I can say it was a great budget build even during the Lake of Kalandra. It's decently tanky and affordable as a League starter, but it's not as fast, and the major downside is its low ceiling to scale the damage like most upcoming OP melee builds in 3.25. I wouldn't recommend starting Spectral Shield Throw until you get the items for cold conversion and a solid shield like the Emperor's Vigilance. So I'd recommend leveling with an OP early leveling skill such as Splitting Steel until you're ready with the key items. Spectral Shield Throw is a variety build, not great for a particular league mechanic, but it's something you could try if you enjoy shield builds in general. Spectral Shield Throw received a slight buff numerically and is also potentially a good league starter. I'll be updating the links in the description below if I can find a detailed league starter guide. If throwing shields is not good enough, then Splitting Steel Champion is another OP league starter you can begin all the way from Act 1, Scene 1. Dealing massive amounts of damage and clear speed with a two-handed sword and two-handed axes. This thing can shatter anything until tier 10 maps, after which you'll have to seriously consider the endgame setup for gearing. Though Dreamfeather is cheap, The Baltimore Blade might be quite expensive during the first 3 to 4 days of the league start. Everything else is pretty cheap and draftable. The reason why Splitting Steel received a sudden hype was the rework of the gem, removing its ammunition part into its transfigured variant. And then its combination with returning projectiles, which is quite OP for the skill. Leveling this with precise technique, like every other attack bow build, is pretty smooth. Just make sure to have some accuracy via precision in your setup. The Splitting Steel champion can farm most content while face tanking with massive amounts of defenses. This version is balanced around hardcore players. So Waffle has an entire dedicated written guide, promising enough to lead your way all the way to the endgame. The champion did receive a set of defensive nerfs, especially with Fortitude and Unstoppable Hero. You're also no longer stun immune, which is a great deal indeed. Both Grace and Determination is nerfed, unless you are using an endgame hybrid armor evasion setup with lots of defensive values to substitute it. So I wouldn't recommend this anymore for hardcore players. Damage-wise, it's a buff in the overall build and skill gem. Hopefully Waffle may give us an update to this build. Next in the line is Tuad's 9-hour-long Fizz Scion from March 13, 2024. Completely SSF viable, decent damage and decent clear speed. You can level this using Spectral Throw until you can switch to Exsanguinate in Act 2. Now, if you look at the pinnacle boss damage from his video, remember that this is showcased in Solo Self-Found. So I will be linking the typical endgame POV for you fellow softcore trade lovers, featuring lots and lots of damage. This is what you should follow until you can buy better items and uniques. Although there isn't a guide in the POV, the reason why I endorsed this one is the fact that he has an entire footage of his SSF run, along with a few notes in his video description. If you are keen on leveling a Scion build despite the aura nerfs, this one can take you all the way to level 99. So it's basically a cheap Scion build for leveling and progression to go from 0 to hero. One thing I have to mention about Scion builds is the fact that at the higher end of the spectrum, Scion is the best ascendancy in PoE that you can scale to limitless power with the help of smart jewels in key locations. Well, that is if you can afford a couple of mirrors indeed. Explosive Trap has always been pretty OP for a pure bossing build. As a crit-based hit build, you scale as much throwing speed, quite similar to the Ice Trap mechanic. Fearless Dump has always been the best guy, quite dedicated into explosive traps, just as Pox is loyal to Righteous Fire. And yes, I know what you're asking. The question is simple. Why go for Trickster instead of Saboteur? I mean, you could technically go Poison Pathfinder, Warden, Inquisitor, or even Hardcore Champion. Why not? It all comes down to personal preference. The reason why Fearless has chosen Trickster, well, let's hear it from the man himself.
Why do I play the Trickster version? And it's pretty simple. There's just no other combination of raw power and defense in any other ascendancy. Shadow is best located on the tree for access to traps, crit, suppression. The Acrobatics Lethal Pride slot is amazing. Charges and charge duration from Swift Killer are incredible, and for charge sustain, and they're basically up for the entire map. Suppression is the best line of defense in an Uber fight, and Tricksters both get it for free.
It's another strong league starter if you love bossing and progression. The AoE also looks much better visually for clearing packs on a budget to get to the boss encounter. The rare items are easily craftable and easily obtainable, except for Kintsugi, which could differ in prices at a league start. If traps are bait, GGG's showcase of Ball Lightning Hierophant might not be a coincidence. So, Archmage builds are quite OP once again, ever since they reworked them in 3.24. Casting skills with Archmage no longer eats up your entire mana pool. This also helps you to use multiple skills linked to Archmage support. One big tip for mana lovers is that if you are using Impulsa or anything that has exploding mods in your gear, if you link Frostblink with Spell Echo and Archmage, you can get an absurd amount of clear speed, like Flicker Strike levels of clearing, I mean. Frostblink of Wintry Blast is just perfect for these builds as long as you have a decent cast speed. Single target DPS looks promising as well, given the items in budget is similar to around my Lightning Conduit setup as well. Archmage builds are mostly based around unwavering stance like evasion builds. This means you'll need to stack tons of mana instead of evasion to face tank all the hits coming at you. Here, unwavering stance is the answer to avoid getting stun locked, like the Roas that harass players in Act 1 during league start. Ball Lightning may not be a fun build for everyone, so the only thing that can put you off is if you hate the playstyle, like how I felt with the Poisonous Concoction of Bouncing. It's another all-rounder that's all content viable. At times you'll have to throw Sigil of Power and Arcanist Brand, but for most part, it's a one-button playstyle. Kitaba's Thirst can take care of 4 curses while Sniper's Mark is linked to the brand. Now I'll have to ask Palstron if this is still OP like my lightning conduit. If it's not good enough, Palstron and Lance have something even more colorful. The Hexblast Mines is another OP skill for softcore League Start if you love damage like me. The Hexblast that we're talking about is Hexblast of Contradiction. Both the variants share the same amount of flat damage and the potential to inflict the respective elemental ailments depending on crit chance or chance to inflict that ailment. The first major difference is the extra base crit chance you get in Transfigured variant, which means you don't need to use Sandstorm Visage to fix this. Another difference is its 50% more extra damage with hits if the target is hexed, which is a 25% more damage to the overall skill itself. The third notable difference is this one line which replaces all chaos damage penetration and negative chaos resistances. It is a significant build defining difference, which makes Inquisitor a perfect choice to League Start with this. Palstron has a full explanation about this one, so I'll link both of them in the description below. Lance has got a full written guide, the only downside being that the showcased items are definitely not League Start viable in my standards. He loves Ivory Tower with Energy Blade. It's an excellent combo if you've tried my Penance Brand of Dissipation build. Great for endgame. Palstron's version showcases items that are clearly League Start viable. Unless if you are new to Path of Exile, I wouldn't recommend this skill at all. So if you're starting this for the first time, go Palstron until you can switch to Lance's setup. On a side note, Ventura also has some notes if you are interested in the basics. Like my Fire Trap Elementalist, Hexblast Mines are also excellent for farming bosses, essences, harvests, and sanctums, but it's definitely not recommended for a legionary style of clear speed farming. The downside is clearly its movement speed. After all, it's an old man with a lot of heavy lifting on his shoulders.
This might be the best minion build I've ever played. It's certainly the best minion build that's available right now this league. It might be the best one I've ever played.
This was always my aspirational League Starter ever since Captain Lance posted this last year, March 9 of 2023. It does require a detailed guide as it has a couple of keynotes such as cooldown recovery rate and other instructions to follow, like the Cock DD and Explosive Arrow build. So you're gonna require the best build guide, which I will link in the description below, so that you have the smoothest League Start in 3.25. It is another damn build that dominated T17 maps in 3.24, from poison to cold damage types. I personally hate the poison variant, as I'm a person who prefers to one-shot stuff than the ramp-up damage style. All variants are quite tanky, as it's a busted build in the first place, like what the SRS used to be in 3.22. Holy Relic of Conviction is quite different in mechanics compared to the regular version. The Transfigured variant is more focused in dealing damage, while the regular version is balanced around defenses for your character as well. This comes in the form of maximum number of relics and the cooldown recovery rate. At the moment, Balor Mage and Yazi TV have the dedicated written guides, which are worth taking a peek at. The best part about this is its one-button playstyle with Lancing Steel of spraying, like Cock DD, you know, except you don't do corpses. Rest in peace. 2 Transfigured Gems at League Start means that you might have to start with an OP leveling skill until you can switch to the main build. Since this is a Necromancer, I highly recommend any minion League Starter from Gauzy TV until you can swap over to this. Pure minions are not my entertainment, but if you enjoy them, then this is OP for any RPG League Start. This build is another great all-rounder for any content in PoE, and especially for farming T17s. So that's it for my top list of League Starters. Hope you make your choice and have a blast with it.